Now, we have been joined by Mrs. Kenny Okeondo, a governance, security, and gender expert, to have a take on this issue. Good morning, Mrs. Okeondo.
Good morning.
Let's go straight to the point, Mrs. Okeondo. I don't know. You must have heard about the Kano issue, the one in the southeast, another one in Zaria, where children are being targeted, for, I don't know whether for ritual or for, I don't know what kind of killing. But let me ask you first, do we have a pattern, or these incidents are just isolated incidents?
Good morning, and thanks for having me on the show. From experience and from what we've noticed at partners, because we have an office in Kano, what we have noticed over time is that there seems to be a pattern of abuse on children within Kano State, and not only in Kano, but I would say even across the country, depending on where you're looking at. So you see a trend of defilement, which is sexual abuse of minors. You see rape of young boys, either being perpetrated by people that are supposed to have some form of fiduciary relationship with these children. So people that are in a position of trust. So they're not, most of this abuse are not perpetrated by strangers, either teachers, family members, community members. So it's a trend that has evolved. I won't say it's evolving, and needs to be looked at critically so that it can be nipped in the bud.
You must have been seeing reactions, coming from Kano and outside Kano about this particular girl. Just yesterday, the wife of the president, Mrs. Aisha Buhari, called for the public execution of the killer of Hanifa Abubakar. I don't know your take about this. Let's have it.
The call for public execution, we still have the death penalty within our law books. So, and the sentence for homicide or murder is the death penalty. However, beyond the call for the public execution of the perpetrator of this act, or the alleged perpetrator of the act, is to look at the legal framework and the social framework in place in the state that for protection and safety of children. Does the state have a good and a strong framework, safety net that protects children? That is where I think we need to be looking at, because and to ensure that other children do not fall victim either of this kind of repeat offense or act, or the most common one, which is defilement or rape, which is as close to as murder. Thank you.
All right. Also, Kano State government reacted by suspending the operational license of all private schools in Kano, because this issue happened in a private school. I don't know whether that was the right step in the right direction, or too erratic on the part of the Kano State government, because education of millions of students will be affected. I don't know. Let's also have your take about that step by the Kano State government.
That's also a knee-jerk approach. It's a knee-jerk approach to this particular incident. So there are private schools in Kano, and there are also public schools in Kano. Are we saying that same things don't happen, or children in the public schools are safer than the children in the private schools? I beg to disagree. And like I said earlier, what the government of Kano State needs to do is to look at its enabling laws, the laws that presently exist in the state. Do those laws provide safety nets and protection for all children within the state, either in schools, in their homes, or in their communities, Does the law, do these laws protect? Do they have an infrastructure that allows for the safety and security of children? What do I mean by that? So if you get into school, if a teacher notices something is odd about a child, what can the teacher do? When they were registering the schools, when they register private schools, do they undertake a kind of assessment of the infrastructure, of the teachers, of the facilities? Same in the public schools also. Some states have passed the Child Rights Act. Has Kano passed the Child Rights Act? I think this is the time that the Child Rights Act needs to be brought back on the table, and it should be looked at beyond the age of puberty, which is speaking to early marriage. If you look at the Child Rights Act is an encompassing law that allows for the protection and safety of children, because it looks at it from the legal perspective, it looks at it from the social perspective, and it also looks at the psychological aspect of it. The Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act has it been passed in Kano State, which is a modern law that looks at some of these cases and some of these issues. I would round up by saying, if states that are of the same, if governors or states that have same party at the helm of affairs, what lessons are they learning from each other? So I'll bring Lagos State onto the table with what they have, the comprehensive or holistic process they have on safety and security under the Domestic Sexual Violence Response Agency. Can Kano take a leaf from that and borrow some lessons from Lagos State and ensure that their structures are working, their structures are made to work, and they infuse a bit of proactiveness into the system rather than responding after the fact? Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Okeondo, before I allow you to go, let me also ask you, what can we do, or people like you, your groups, to compel state governments to do the right thing? Doing the right thing, I mean domesticating the Child Rights Act in all the 36 states of the Western Union, including FCT Abuja, rather than responding to issues like this or situations like this in a fire brigade way.
I mean, my colleagues and I would say we've been doing what we know how we can do best, because we're not government and we cannot take the place of government, and that's advocacy. And we continue to advocate for good laws to be passed and continue to raise the issues beyond politics. And like I said, as we continue to raise the issues beyond politics, we continue to highlight the benefits of the law. I know that, like I said earlier, the Child Rights Act suffered, I would say, narrow interpretation because of the issues that were initially raised and contested, which is the issue of early marriage. If you put aside the issue of early marriage and the age of puberty, which is also important, look at the bigger picture. Do we throw away the baby with the bathwater? That's the question we need to ask ourselves now. And I think Kano, like I said, would also continue to highlight the good practices. Jigawa is the next door neighbor to Kano State, and they have been very proactive in their laws and the review of their laws. Kano State can also borrow from Jigawa State. And let's look the peer review and the peer mentoring between states, particularly those that are from the same party, is something that needs to be looked at so that they are borrowing good practices from each other.
All right, many thanks to you, Mrs. Kemi Okeondo, Executive Director, Partners West Africa, Nigeria, and as well Governance, Security, and Gender Expert. Thank you for speaking with us this morning on Inside Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.